As the official healthcare provider of Minnesota United, Allina Health is focused on keeping our Loons in top condition. And with expertise in orthopedics, sports medicine, heart care, and more, Allina has the team to keep your family in the game too. The experts at Allina Health take the time to get to know you as a whole person, helping you achieve wellness for your mind, body, and spirit. It's an altogether better kind of healthcare. Learn more at allinahealth.org. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sound of the Loons presented by Allina Health. And we have another absolutely gorgeous day in the state of Minnesota, but we're going to find out what it's like elsewhere in the United States. But first and foremost, another fabulous day to talk about Minnesota United soccer and all its forms and fashions. So I get to be joined by the one and the only Tani Oluwaseyi, who I feel like there's got to be only one of you in the world. That's a pretty unique name. How are you doing? I feel like I haven't seen you since talked to you on a podcast since you got drafted, and you did like a special forum with the season ticket members and all those folks. So how are you doing?
No, I'm good. I think it's been quite the journey since then. A lot of ups and downs, like in every professional career, but it's one of those things where the more you do, the more you learn, and the better you are for it. So it's been a year, almost 2 years now of just learning and just, trying to be the best player I can be.
So tell everyone where you're at right at this moment. We're going to dive into San Antonio and the loan and whatnot, but where are you at? And just like, how are you adapting to life in San Antonio? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, no, I'm in San Antonio. Been here since I think end of April or May. So I think I've had a lot of time to, adjust into life here and everything that I'm doing here. Once the routine gets set, makes a lot of things really easy. When I first got here, there's always an adjustment process with anything, with a big move like that. When you're moving from one state to the other, new apartment, new everything. So there's always that little adjustment period. But once that was over, then everything's kind of been just pretty much smooth sailing since. Yeah.
Well, I want to go back even to when you were drafted, coming out of college. You had dealt with some injuries in college, but Minnesota United had confidence and faith in picking you. And then you came in, of course, you're part of the first team stuff. There's a lot going on. You're trying to get your feet wet in your professional career. And then all of a sudden you're here for a bit, and then you go on loan. And now you've had an insane amount of success with San Antonio, which we'll get to that as well. But what's that process been like for you? Was it what you thought it was going to be? Did you temper your expectations when you got drafted, just knowing it's not an easy path? It's going to, no path is linear, right? Everybody's career path can go up, down, and sideways to get to where you want to be at the end. So what was that journey like for you? Mentally, emotionally, physically, all of it?
Truthfully, my first 2 years as a pro has gone nothing like I thought it was going to go. I think we all come in with just having confidence in ourselves and our ability and what we can do. And the reason that we're even in this position is because we've had so much success as players up until that point. So, when you get to that next level, I've had the same dreams and aspirations since I was probably 5 years old. And when you finally get there and things aren't looking the way that you thought they would, like coming into my rookie year, I came in off of surgery my senior year in college. So that already put me a little bit behind in terms of fitness level, or just where I needed to be in order to, help the team out. So it was a slow start for me, but, it never really got going my first year because it was just one injury after another. I pulled my hamstring 3 times, the exact same one. So there was just a lot of me rehabbing. And I think last year was the biggest point in my life where I realized how important the mental side of things are. Because up until then, when things are going good, you might be down for a little bit and then something good happens and then you're back on top. But it was such a prolonged period where I personally just had to, 1, do some self-reflection, 2, just get some help from outside sources. to kind of help me through that and work through the things that weren't going right, and just try and help me keep a good head on my shoulders for whatever being a pro was going to bring, And, I was lucky enough to get my option picked up, and I came into preseason ready to go. I spent all of the offseason, working, running, doing all the things that we need to do. And, I came in, I think I had a pretty good preseason. You got a couple goals here and there, but again, the game that we play, it's never fair to anyone, or it's never, what you think it's going to be. So for me, it was coming in, I worked hard, I did my part, but there's a lot of other moving parts that you have to take into account. So had a few conversations with the GAF, and he just kind of thought it'd be better for me at this point, especially considering my first year. I only played, I think, 10 games, even with the second team. So he thought it'd be important for me to go get games at a good level where, I'm going to be playing game in, game out, and I can just continue to grow as a player. And that's when the San Antonio move kind of materialized. And, at first, I won't lie, I wasn't thrilled about it. Like, I don't think anyone would be thrilled about it. But, I just had to pivot as quickly as possible and shift my focus to San Antonio and getting as much success as I possibly can while I'm here. And I came here and I hit the ground running, and just been trying to just continue to be a good player, good teammate, and whatever the team needs, and just competing for a championship here.
I love a couple things that you said there. First of all, the fact that it was nothing what you thought it was going to be, because you're right. You're absolutely right. To get into the position, to even be drafted, A, you've had a lot of confidence along the way because you have to get to where you're at, right? And B, you've had a lot of success along the way to feel like I even want to enter the draft and I want to be a professional at this stage in your life. And it takes an incredible amount of hard work, dedication, time, hours, sacrifice, go down the list, you name it. The second thing is just the fact that the mental aspect of things, which I love that we focus on that so much now. Not that it's, that we call it mental health and mental awareness rather than being mental illness, because I feel like people get this weird perspective. And I mean, we have this conversation in life all the time, whether it's you're an athlete, whatever your career is, whether it's a relationship, whether it's yourself as an individual, that just having outside conversations and help from people in different ways to navigate things is so important. We've talked to a lot of MNUFC 2 players and academy kids on this podcast, and I feel like that resonates a lot with these younger players, knowing that there is no one path. It's okay to not be okay. And whether that just means you had a bad practice and you're down, or whether that means there's something more going on, right? Pivoting and adjusting to these things in life.
Yeah. And I think definitely in terms of, the mental aspect that we've talked about a little bit, it was my senior year in college where I didn't, and then it kind of got amplified a little bit more when I went pro, how important that is, because till that point, it was just kind of brush things under the rug. Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. But when it becomes kind of like a constant thing and you realize that you feel yourself going to a place where you don't want to go to, that's when I kind of had to take a step back and think, okay, well, you've done it in college. My senior year after I dislocated my kneecap, I went to see our sports psychologist there, and he helped me incredibly throughout my senior year. And, coming into Minnesota again, you have the goals, the aspirations, what you think things are going to go. And then when it doesn't go that way, then it's time to, figure things out. And for me, it took me a couple months, honestly, before I was like, okay, like I'm definitely not okay, and I need to go speak to somebody. And I think that was the best thing I did, because from then on, you get these little tools and stuff to help you work on everyday life, just going through things like the same things you do every day, but just better ways to handle things, better ways to handle situations. And the more I played the game, the more I realized that it's probably 60% mental, whether it's like the way you play, just being a smart player overall, or just the mentality, playing with confidence. A player with confidence and a player without confidence, completely different, two different players, and I got to a point where I didn't truly recognize myself as a player. Like we said, like I've had a lot of success leading up to this point. And there were times where I was truly fully doubting my abilities as a player and thinking, how long was I going to last in this game? So, and I think every player at some point has probably gone through that, just a little bit of doubt on who you are as a player, and if you have, the skill set to make it at this level. But I think I went to go see another sports psychologist through Minnesota, and then also my parents as well, just constantly telling me, positive reinforcement and just different things. Just continue to tell myself that, okay, you're at this level for a reason, and you played well before. It wasn't a fluke. Like, you can do it again. So that's just one thing that I'm still working on until this day, just trying to get in that right mindset and stay there, and not, there's going to be times where you fall back into old habits, but I try for the most part to just keep a good head on my shoulders and just always have that confidence in myself and my abilities.
I feel like you hear it a lot too with goal scorers. I mean, from a confidence perspective, and how many times you see it could be the best, goal scorer in the world if they're on a drought. I mean, I've done a few DC United games with Christian Benteke, and like how he was in this slump, and listening to Wayne Rooney talk about it, who's another legendary goal scorer. And once you get on that run, but mentally, how you can, makes everything a little bit harder when you're overthinking and questioning and second guessing every touch, every move, every decision you make, rather than just doing what comes naturally and what you've worked so hard to do. So when you got to San Antonio and you had to switch your mindset again, that this is a good spot for me to maybe get that confidence back, hone those skills again, play some games, which is just most important at this level, is just to be getting games. You can't train every day. You switch your mindset, and then clearly you have found some incredible success. So what has worked for you there? What was the team like when you arrived, and the coaching staff, and, being utilized in a way for you to be most successful, and then a way that you're helping the team at the same time?
Oh, the team has been honestly incredible. From the moment I got here on a Friday. They had a game on the Saturday, and the coaches were kind of like, hey, do you want to just be on the bench just so you can see how things work, how we play, and things like that. And, from that day, I walked into the locker room. Everyone was incredibly welcoming, and they just made settling in that much easier, because the locker room is honestly a lot of times the hardest part. If you're in a good locker room with good guys, it makes everything a lot easier. And I had that in Minnesota, and I had that here as well. Just guys who are around you, just keeping you up. They know you're a young player making it up in the game, and they know how it was when they were there. So from the jump, they said, hey, we believe in your abilities. We know what your strengths are. We're going to try and play to your strengths. And my second game in, I hit a goal that, honestly, between you and me, never thought I'd be able to score something like that. Once that happened, a lot of that pressure that I came in with, because I remember my first training session here was horrendous. Like, I was really bad my first training session. And a couple months later, I'm talking to my teammates about it, and they were like, Tani, we thought you were terrible after that first session. And, like, it was bad. And then, we have the game.
Why they send us this guy? What is happening?
Yeah, exactly. So, once that first game gets out the way, and I get the winning goal against Las Vegas, I think, kind of relax a little bit. And it's like, okay, like, I can still do this. Like, this isn't foreign to me. It's what I've done my whole life. And that happened, and good things just kept happening. I've just kind of been rolling with it since.
So what are your goals then for this season when you're currently with San Antonio, and then also when you get your time and you head back to Minnesota United? And what have the differences been like for you between the two leagues? And, how have you sort of viewed that?
I think there's a lot of talent in the USL. Honestly, I wasn't really aware of it until I got here. And the guys in my locker room are incredible. And we've played a lot of really good players who could definitely play at the next level at the MLS. And for me, like, my goals have they've always been, as a striker, your goals are always goals. That's what they are. Just trying to get as many goals as possible for this team. I'm in a position where I'm competing for the Golden Boot. So I'm still aiming for that. But more importantly, more than anything, San Antonio won the league last year. And we have those same aspirations this year, to lift another trophy, bring another one, and go back to back this year. So that's kind of the biggest thing for us. We got 4 games left in the regular season. We're hoping we can, finish out strong and kind of carry a good form going into playoffs. And I would love to, cap this incredible time in my life as a professional player with a championship for a city with incredible fans and just incredible people all around. So that's definitely the goal for me. And, in terms of the difference between USL and MLS, I think the one thing I would say is it's more back and forth here. A lot, like, there's a lot more, the ball's moving a lot. I wouldn't say faster, like, not in terms of possession and things like that, but it's a lot more chaotic, and you kind of just have to deal with that chaos and find moments in the game to play, and when to do this, when to run in behind, when to check in. That's, I'd say, is the biggest difference. In the MLS, it's a lot more, guys are a lot more spaced out. There's more of an emphasis on keeping the ball and playing and, just trying to be the best team. So I think that's probably what I'd say is the difference. But in terms of quality, there's a lot of quality here, a lot of quality players. And, I think I'm a better player for having come here.
What do you think is the biggest takeaway that you'll have, or maybe something that, you didn't know you had in your tool, your toolbox, that you've honed that craft, you've learned something new that you can bring back to Minnesota United? And then also just how much you communicate with anybody that's in relation to the first team, whether that's other players, whether that's the staff, whether that's anybody in the front office. What's that communication like as well?
I think for me, like, the one thing that I will bring back is this. It's ironic, but it's the fact that I can score goals still. Before I got here, I was fully doubting, my abilities and what I was able to do on a football field, something I've done my whole life. And I was at a point where I wasn't doing it on a consistent basis. So I started doubting, if I can still do this, or maybe this level wasn't there for me, and to get here and to be in those positions and to finish the chances that I have this season, it just kind of made me like the player I was before, I lost that confidence, and just to continue to believe that all these, and I watch a lot of game tape. So every time I'm in a position where I've done something before, if it doesn't go right another time, I always just say to myself, hey, you've been there before. You've been in that exact same situation. You know what you have to do. So that's my biggest takeaway from here, that I know for a fact that I can do this at a high level, and I'm just going to continue to, be a better player and just continue to just improve my game in whatever aspects that, is required from me. And, in terms of like communication with the first team, I think a lot of the guys on the first team, like friend-wise, like or teammates-wise, have done a good job of checking in, whether it's just, hey, how you doing? Oh, I saw your game this weekend, things like that. Me and Hassani are really close. So we talk quite a bit, actually. So we go back and forth, they'll have a game. We'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about that. Then I'll ask him about Gigi, and then we'll talk about something random. And football season's on too. So we're big on too. Yeah. So we'll get a lot of conversation in that aspect. And, the first team coaches and staff, they've done a good job of checking in on me every once in a while, especially like if they've seen that, they've obviously followed my game. So if they see like I've had a good game, they do a good job of checking in, just making sure that I know that they're watching and they're happy to see that the loan is working, and like they want me to be able to bring that back to Minnesota.
If you had any just sort of parting words of wisdom for someone that is, maybe going to be drafted this next year, or going to have come out of the draft, maybe they're their first year in the league, but they found themselves in a situation like you, whether it was injuries or not, what would those words of wisdom be? Because I feel like it's so good for people and players and athletes to hear that, because sometimes it can seem a little bit hopeless or a little bit, daunting at times when you've done this your whole life and you've had so much success and you're trying to kind of figure out, hey, should I stick with this? Or should I find something else?
I think the two things I'll say is, one, belief in yourself is pretty much everything. You have to truly believe that you can make it at that level. And it's one thing to believe it before getting there. It's a completely other thing to believe it when you're in the middle of it. So once you get there, and there is going to be an adjustment process, there's going to be training sessions where you might be the worst player on the field. Nothing will seem to go right, but just having that kind of mindset that, okay, it's just one bad training session does not mean you're a bad player. We have 6 training sessions a week. If you have one bad session, that's still 5 out of 6 where you've played well. So just continuing to, just believe in what you do, what you're bringing to the table, why a team drafted you in the first place. And also just finding joy in the little things, I'd say. Those training sessions where you do have a really good session, you're the best player on the field, cherish that, enjoy that, because you've worked hard to enjoy moments like that. And when you aren't getting the game time, or where you're not playing, or you're not in the squad, or whatever it is, it's those kind of little moments that are going to keep you going, up until you get your opportunity. And then the body of work that you've put in up until that point, you just hope that it carries on to when you get that opportunity. But I say belief in yourself is one. And then the second one is honestly just being very truthful with yourself. Because a lot of times we, like as players, we tend to lie to ourselves a lot that, oh, I can do this, I can do that, or I can't do this, or I can't do that.
Or it was someone else's fault, or like, hey, well, I'm not getting the right service, or this ball isn't played in the right spot, or, whatever. There can always be excuses, right? There's got to be some accountability in there.
At some point as a player, you just have to, see what you do well and just say to yourself, and this is something that I'm still working with. I just had a conversation with my dad after my last game about this, that, like, you can be upset that other people are doing this or that's not working in your favor. But as long as you do some self-reflection and you see, okay, I did this training session or this game, this is how I played. What did I do well? What did I not do well? And if you break those things down and you're just really brutally honest with yourself, when you start improving those things, you'll see a lot of things change for you. And that's kind of one. And there's like a quote from Robin Van Persie that I saw not too long ago. He was talking to his son, and his son was complaining after a game. And he just said to him straight up, like, dude, you can't keep blaming other people at some point, you're going to have to like look in the mirror and say, okay, well, regardless of what anyone else does, I wasn't perfect on the day too. What can I work on? And once you get a control of your life and what you're doing, it takes you a long way.
That's awesome. I appreciate you checking in with us. I love it. I think that there's so many players out there that, love to hear from players like yourself and the path and the journey that you've taken. And then others, as I said, we've talked to a lot of the twos and a lot of the academy kids. And I just feel like everybody's at a different spot in their journey, and not everybody's going to make it to the professional ranks or even getting drafted, but there's different levels along the way. And it's really just about the life lessons of having passion for something and working hard to get somewhere. And I think that bodes well for any career path that people take at the end of the day. You're very lucky in that you get to be a professional athlete, but there's all sorts of things out there for everybody. So I appreciate you taking the time to check in. And I just want to give you a little credit because we get to see the highlights that show up on Twitter when you score the goals and all that. But I know that, it's so much more than just scoring the goals. And I think that's what sometimes gets missed. It's like, well, we do our player to watch each week. Everyone wants it. The producers always want to focus on the goal scorers. I always want to focus on, and no offense, because you're a goal scorer, but I'm like, I always want to focus on the 6 or the 8, or somebody else who's doing some of the other stuff that never gets noticed and maybe it gets any attention. But I just know that there's so much that you do off the ball and as a teammate and the work that you put in, not just the goal. So I appreciate all of that. And I appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you so much, Kyndra. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully it's not too hot in San Antonio. And I look forward to seeing how you guys wrap up the regular season and how you guys do in the postseason as well. Thank you. Appreciate it. You take care too. Thanks, Tani. Appreciate it. Stay tuned, everybody. I got Cobi Jones coming up next in segment number 2. Looking for a way to get closer to your club? For just $25, Loons fans can join the Preserve, Minnesota United's official season ticket waitlist. Waiting usually isn't fun, but this waitlist comes with benefits. Being a member of the Preserve gives you early access to MNUFC single game tickets, partial season plans, and group tickets, as well as special pre-sales for other marquee events that come to Allianz Field. Visit MNUFC.com/preserve to join. Welcome back, everybody, to segment number 2 of Sound of the Loons, presented by Allina Health. This time I get to be joined by the one and only Cobi Jones. Last time I had the one and only Tani Oluwaseyi, who is, as we know, a former draft pick of Minnesota United, currently with San Antonio in USL. So now I get to talk to a man that's been there, done that at every single level you can possibly imagine. And now we can share stories about our travel with MLS and Apple TV. But how are you now that you're fresh off the flight from Austin, Texas?
I'm feeling and looking fresh, right?
Yes, exactly.
No, I'm doing all right. It's been fun, just the whole Apple situation, and it's been an experience, the travel. It's part of the job. I was just talking to someone recently that had a good line for it, and it's just when you're in basically the live sports business, this is what it's all about. You do a lot of traveling and a lot of movement. So yeah, having a good time.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And I think it's tricky too, because there are some people that are doing what we do currently, and then they also do other sports. So there's no technical off season for them. They might roll right into college basketball or whatever it might be. So like for us, we get to kind of hone in on soccer, but at the same time, this MLS schedule is crazy this year. The playoffs are going to be wild. It feels sort of like everybody and their mother gets to make it. It's kind of like bowl games in college football. You get a bowl and you get to go to a bowl and you get to go to a bowl. So you played in an era of MLS where, first of all, when you played, were there the shootouts where you like went 1v1 and like dribbled from halfway?
Oh yeah, I'm from the very beginning, so I got to see it all.
Okay, so you got to experience every single bit of it. So what do you make of the current state of MLS and sort of this iteration purely from a schedule standpoint? 29 teams. I don't know if you ever thought it would get to that point, knowing how this league started out and sort of how it's progressed and rallied over the years, whereas like we had 3 owners, I think, for every team in the league back in the day. What do you make of the current iteration of MLS and where we're at?
I think it's fantastic. I think where we are, and look, it's from my viewpoint, right? I was there at the beginning, so I've seen it where we had a league that started out with a certain amount of teams, expanded to 12, then it contracted. So is the league going to survive? So to go from there, and see where we are now, where we have ownership groups, as you know as well as I, vying to try to be a part of MLS, spending hundreds of millions, that tells you, that we've made it. We've gotten to the point where we made it, I mean that we're here for the long haul. There's the money behind it. There's the stadiums behind it. There's the ownership, the fans, everyone is behind it. Now, can we get better? Can we, adjust? Can we adapt? Yes. And that's every league. You can always see there's little things that are happening, but this league now, I never could have dreamed it would be to this level where we are. And I'm excited to see, these next 10, 15 years, what really happens, because I think you add in a World Cup coming in here with MLS. I think that's really going to have that really boost that exponential growth in the fandom, especially, above all the player level. It's another thing that deserves a little bit of a discussion as far as just seeing. I always say at the beginning of MLS, we had talented players. We had great teams that could compete now, I think, very easily. If you look at those teams, it was a lot, because there was so few, there were a lot of teams that had all national team players, that were all national team players in pretty much every position. I think the difference now that we find is that we're seeing teams that have national team players, and it's that middle to lower level of talent that lower bar has been raised higher, and I think that's something that has really made the game much more enjoyable. You don't see as many just like blowout games. You see them every once in a while, but you don't see as many blowout games as you used to, when we talk about those first years within the league.
When you get together with other MLS legends and you guys discuss, and do you ever reminisce about those days, like what that was like? And we can talk about, some of the goofy uniforms back then and how everybody was wearing baggy shorts and baggy shirts and all this stuff. But what do you guys talk about because there's a lot of you that are still in this business or in this circle. It's hard to get out of the soccer circle once you've been in the soccer circle, especially the level you've been at. So what do you guys discuss when you end up at some of these gatherings? I'm sure Mr. Don Garber gets you together every once in a while at, the Legends game and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, we talk about, we wish we had the DP contracts back then. Like right. First and foremost, let's be honest.
You might not be working right now if you had that DP contract back then. You could be retired.
Yeah, I'd be on a beach in the Caribbean somewhere right now. With my Apple TV, so I could just my phone. There you go.
Just stream it. There you go.
You can see it anywhere. We get together, we talk about a variety of things. In all honesty, that is one of them that we talk about. We do talk about, you mentioned about the uniforms, how they were different, but not so much the craziness of uniforms, because I think you still see that somewhat today, but I would say like the bagginess of like the jerseys and stuff. And when we would sweat in them, you got an extra 5 pounds on you. You're just going like, man, I would have been like, it's so much faster if I had like.
There's like a parachute. There's like a parachute on you. Like you already were so fast, but you get really moving and that thing just like blows up.
Oh, yeah, it just exactly would blow out. It was hilarious. No, but besides all the funny things, we do talk about the progression of the league. And kind of like where everybody's at now. And And as time goes on, just like the difficulties of trying to stay in touch, with one another, with like life and family and all these things, become more prevalent, more important, in your lives, where you have to shift from the soccer so much and really focus on your family and friends and all those things. So those are the main topics, I would say. And then it's really catching up, because another thing about this business is players come and go, on teams. I was fortunate to be in one spot my whole career, but it's very common for a player to come in 2-3 years, you become good friends, and then boom, they're off to another team. They could be in New York, for 2 or 3 years, and then somewhere else, and they settle. As they get older, they settle in that last spot, where they're at. So you really don't see those players too much anymore. So it really is about trying to catch up and seeing how people are still involved, within the game.
When you look at, just a little bit more on the current state of MLS, and you talked about owners vying, I mean, there's a line of owners and groups that want to be a part of this. And then Don Garber's kind of got this power to be like, yes, you get the team. Yes, you checked all the boxes. No, you didn't. You got to do this, this, and this to be awarded a team, to deserve a team. What do you make of the soccer-specific stadiums, especially now? I mean, you were working for LA Galaxy before, but now with Apple and MLS, you get to travel a little bit more, see a few more stadiums that maybe you wouldn't have seen otherwise when you were working and playing for one team. So what do you make of the stadiums now? And did you ever think, I mean, I think was Columbus Crew like the first soccer-specific stadium, their original one? And that was like, oh my gosh, there's a soccer, what do you make of it now?
Oh, I think it's fantastic to see just the evolving stadiums and the designs, and how, now you actually have, groups that are looking to come in, and the stadiums, they're trying to make it as tech savvy as possible to try to, garner maybe a little gratitude or whatever from Don Garber, just in saying, hey, look at this plan. Look what we can do over here. Those are very positive things for MLS, is that you see that we could have, as stadiums come in, they're the latest designs on that, depends on the size that you're going, but that 20 to 30,000 seat stadium, and bringing in the latest technology. It allows MLS to be on the cutting edge, of everything within sports. And as we've seen, that changes every single year. So I love to see it. We go to these stadiums, I've been to Austin quite a bit, seen their stadium, the Q2, and that one, it kind of blows your mind away. I saw besides Austin, saw the national team play there, and it's hard to put into words. Thinking back, at the times where, at the Galaxy, we were driving around trying to see if we could find a place to train, and we would train in parking lots or beg a local university, for their grounds if we used the soccer field. Now, I mean, all these stadiums, soccer-specific stadiums with not only that, but soccer-specific training sites. I mean, this is another level that I hope this generation of player understands. I know they won't, because that's just
and appreciates.
Yeah, but they won't be able to appreciate it to the level that I can look at and appreciate.
And then just last one about sort of overall about the league. You talked about some of the quality players that were there and on those teams when you played. There was no shortage of talent, and even talent that had come from overseas and international. But what do you think about the current state? You've probably been asked about Messi 1,000 times, a million different ways, but that is like a real talking point. I mean, and I don't think I for sure don't ever get sick of watching him play, whether it's with Argentina or whether it's now with Miami. What does it mean, you think, even for the league in that standpoint, to have a player like that at this part of his career coming off of a World Cup win for this league?
That's the key part, what you said. And a lot of people will talk about, oh, he's coming to MLS to retire. Oh, he's doing this and this. And then that, I mean, how many times have we heard that over the years, about players? But you cannot say that about Messi. You can't say, oh, he's washed up, he's done. This guy just won the World Cup. What was it? Now it's 8-9 months ago, maybe a little longer. And he was the best player on the team. He literally willed that team. Yes, there are other fantastic players, but he willed that team to victory, in going all the way. So it astounds me that he made the decision to come here. I love it. I think it was the best thing that could have happened for MLS and for Apple. I think they all came together to make it happen, and Miami is definitely reaping the benefits of it all, which is necessary. I think it sends a sign out, right? If you can get these top tier talents from around the world to come in and participate in MLS, you will be rewarded as a club and an organization, not only with the jerseys and the TV and everyone watching it, or the streaming, or whichever way you want to look at it, but you'll also be rewarded on the field. That's what it comes down to in the end. And you see in Messi, at least, and this is pure just my take on it all, he seems to be happy.
I was just going to ask you about that.
He seems to be happy and having a good time. It definitely helps that he brought in two of his buddies,
Sure.
Of course, so he can relate. But it seems like a different vibe that is coming from Messi, that he seems to be enjoying it, and I'm sure part of that has to do with himself, his friends, but also his family. Maybe they're enjoying, living in Miami and the experience.
I was going to ask you that because you being a former player yourself and having family and having kids, and there does seem to be this different joy when he plays the game and his family is attending. I remember when he scored that very first goal for Miami, and he runs straight over and he hugs his kids on the sideline. Like, when's the last time that probably happened to him, considering who he's played for in the past and just the different situations and where the families sit? And he seems to actually have like a real sense of joy about him, so much so that I think that may affect others that are thinking of, hey, do I go to Saudi Arabia and I make $1 billion, or do I go to MLS and I still make a really good amount of money, but I have a great life with my family and we can enjoy it? Because how much money do you really need at some point? Where Cristiano Ronaldo might be going, well, geez, did I make the right choice here? I've got this Bugatti and I've got this Lamborghini and 75 other cars, but like, can I go to Miami or somewhere else in MLS and really enjoy it?
Yeah, look, that's always going to be the question that players are going to have to ask themselves. If you're looking, what's most important to you, right? Is it the money? Is it the lifestyle? Variety, where your family feels comfortable? All these different things, that go into account. And right now, it does seem to be like a little bit of a battle raging between the Saudi League and MLS and trying to attract these top tier players. I think for MLS, we may see some of the additions occur postseason, within MLS. But right now, you're seeing a lot of the movement within the Saudi League. We'll see what happens at the end of this season and how MLS decides to make the moves. Because I have a feeling there's going to be some teams that are going to want to try to draw some top talent, within this league. And I think it's going to be very exciting. And let's not forget as well, with a new team coming in, when we talk about San Diego, they're probably already starting to make moves now, to try to adjust and be ready, for this league. So I think there's going to be a lot of stuff over the next year or two. And for those players that are making decisions and for the teams, you can't forget it's a World Cup year too.
That's true.
coming
That's
up
true.
in 26. And so this is some good 2-year build out. That's when you start really planning 2 years out of what's going to be happening, during that year. So there's a lot of opportunity for teams, for players, for everybody.
So what's up with the Galaxy? Minnesota United faces Galaxy. This is a Minnesota United podcast coming up on Wednesday. And you've been a part of the LA Galaxy for a very long time, whether as a player, as a broadcaster. What do we make of this team? Because we see, speaking of good players, Ricky Puig coming in. He can light the world on fire with his ability, with his skill. There's been so much made of Greg Vanney when he was hired. Now, is this his third season, I believe? Still not quite sure. Everybody's had some injuries. What do you make of LA Galaxy and where they are? And then LAFC, clearly having come in a few years ago now, had raised the bar on that market there. But what do you make of them from your vantage point now?
Yeah, well, if we start out with the LAFC, they've definitely raised the bar. They came in, they struggled for a couple of years, but then ended up making the moves, doing everything that they needed to do, and winning the championship. That does raise the bar, and I think that's good, all the way around, because it forces organizations that are nearby or competing to raise their level as well. I think the Galaxy are in the process. Right now, like you said, Greg Vanney, this is his third year as coach. Talent is coming in. We've seen it. The Ricky Puig, like you said. From my perspective, I love the competitive nature. That's what I want to see on every single player, and to be honest, on every single team. That type of competitive nature. And everybody watching this knows that there's players that you can just say, yeah, they have that bite, they have that fight where they're gonna go down swinging. And that's what Riqui Puig is. He's obviously a top talent coming in from Barcelona, and we've seen him do some magic with his runs through the heart of defenses. So he's the talisman with the Galaxy. Right now, the Galaxy have had struggles. I think that the beginning of the season really hurt the Galaxy on how they were dropping games, and now it's a catch-up situation. Can you catch up and get into that right position? You have I think on most teams they have one or two games in hand. So they're still in a decent position right outside the playoff line. Now the problem in saying that is you have to win the games to get those points. That's an issue. Everyone always says, "Oh, we got games in hand." Well, are you going to that's
what are you going to do with those games?
Exactly, and that's where the Galaxy have to pick up some points. They have I think they have 4 home games still, and if they can get victories in the home games, and yes, the ones against Minnesota, as well, if they can pick up points there, then they're sitting in a much better position. It just comes down to, like I said, can you do it? Now the Galaxy have also had, as far as a team, they've had the injury bug, quite a bit. Chicharito, that was a big one, for them. Costa over the time had gone in and out, with injuries. And there's been various other players. Delgado in the past had injuries, and that has been Brugman, a big one, for the Galaxy. Those have been major issues, especially when you're talking about the spine of the team having injuries and how difficult that is to try to replace that. And that's where the Galaxy has had to try to replace. And then you had off the field issues, as well. So a bit of chaos, and trying to navigate through all that storm and get results has been the issue, because I think anybody would tell you it's not good enough, because the Galaxy has high expectations of where they want to be within the league. And so being where they are right now, I don't think anyone there is happy about it, but, they're working towards it to try to figure it out. The issue, not a lot of time left, not a lot of time.
Well, it's funny because it feels like when the season started, we're like, oh man, it feels like this is a long season. And then all of a sudden you get to Leagues Cup and you come out of Leagues Cup and you're like, wow, every team has like 10 or 11 games left. The season's winding down. We were just sort of joking about how there's all these playoff spots now. But what does it say if you're a team that misses out on the playoffs and there are that many spots, and you're especially sort of a legendary team like the Galaxy, who has spent some money, made the coaching change. There's been some upheaval in the front office. The fan base has voiced their displeasure, which, to some supporters groups, I think they've earned the right to a certain degree to demand certain things because they're putting the money and the time, the energy into the team. But also sometimes I feel like supporters groups have too much influence, or I don't even know what the right word is. I don't want to get in trouble. I'll get hated on, but you know what I mean? There's a happy medium, because fans deserve something, because they put a lot of time, energy, and money into going to the games, attending, buying jerseys. I just dealt with this in Colorado, right? The supporter group walked out and they're displeased about the lack of investment into that club and different aspects of it. So with all those things combined, how do you quiet that noise and just focus on the field and the task at hand, whether you're Greg Vanney, you're the front office, or you're the players?
You know what makes it easier?
Winning.
Boom. You got it right there. Guess what? Everybody's happy when you win. That's
funny how that happens. The whole locker room's joyous, right? Everybody loves the coach.
How problems disappear when you win, So,
yep.
That's the look. We can talk about all those things that you talked about, right? And they're all valid. They're all valid. But even if we go back to the nitty gritty, the basics of what this is a game that we're playing where one team is playing the other team, and you've got to win the games, and that's what it's about. You win, it makes the front office happy. It makes the fans happy. It makes the supporter groups happy. It just makes everything that much better. So it's about finding a way to put some W's on the board, and getting the results, and then everyone gets behind you. Yeah, there's always going to be some people that that disagree, and fair enough. That's fine. Go ahead. Disagree, show that you want this, that, or the other. But when it comes down to it, for I think Greg Vanney and the players, if they win, it makes it easier all the way.
Yeah, it's funny that it's not funny because it is actually that simple. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, you cover different teams in your lifetime and, oh man, it's a cancerous environment in there. Nothing's going right. And I've covered every sport at every level. And then all of a sudden you win a couple, it's like, oh man, this guy's got the greatest game plan. He's got everything going right. Your star players looking like the star player, and all the other things kind of fade into the background.
Yeah, I mean, I look back and do some comparisons. I look back at that '05 Galaxy team, and I know that's going way back, but we snuck in. We snuck into the playoffs. We got in, and boom, we ended up one win after another because, like you said, it's a completely another tournament.
Yep.
And you get on a roll, and you get on a roll that time. Boom, we ended up winning, the MLS Cup, and we ended up winning the Open Cup. So we got the double. So from the stresses of just like, oh, what's going on, to all of a sudden, yeah, this is one of the best teams ever. We won doubles, It can happen like that, So it's great to talk about, but that's just the nature of the business that we're in. I do want to talk about one thing that you mentioned, the playoff format. I think that's really interesting this year because I should know this. I'm not sure how the league wants to bill it, if it's 9 spots and stuff like that. But I think it's more exciting when you say there's actually, there's 8 playoff spots, and we've got to think about that playing game because I think that's going to be really exciting, to see that 7-8 or whatever is it, the 8-9 really battling it out and that one off, to get into the playoffs. I think maybe taking a little bit of a hint from the NBA on how they did it, but it's going to be an exciting time there. It does add, more teams, where you can say you have a chance to get into the playoffs. But I'm excited. I'm excited about that because it gives you that win or go home, mentality to really kick off things, right away.
Well, and you have to have that in that scenario because you can say that leading up to that point as much as you want. Oh, this is a must-win game. Oh, this is a must-win game. Oh, no, this is really a must-win game. And as you said, that LA Galaxy team, you get in and you never know what can happen. You just got to get in and then you never know what can happen. Who cares how you got in, what position you got in? Of course, sometimes home field advantage does make a difference if you're in the top 4 spots. But outside of that, you get in and anything can happen at that point. Speaking of sort of like these random surprise turnarounds, you go from barely getting in to winning it all. What do you make of FC Cincinnati? I mean, you'd go from like multiple wooden spoons to where they're at now. Never knew a wooden spoon thing existed until Cincinnati earned it a couple of years in a row. But what does that tell you about this league?
It tells me, a variety of things. I think that there's always opportunity, that there is that parity, that there's not that much difference from being a bottom team to being the top if you just make the right changes and the quality changes and motivate your team correctly and get them going. And that's why I would say for, Pat Noonan, he's done a fantastic job there in really changing things around and making it into, the top team, that it is. Right now where they just find ways to win. They have talent, in the right positions. It's a lot of hard work, at those levels to get the right players in and to get the right, mood within the team where everybody's willing to work with one another and get things done. I think it's fantastic, and what message that sends, to the other teams is that it's just 1 year, you can be at the bottom and the next you can be at the top. So I think it's good as far as the motivation to keep teams going and to really try to, stay with it. Let's not have just the give up attitude because you never know, like we keep saying.
And then just real quickly on Minnesota United, I should probably for sure ask you about them but I also am like very cognizant, and you and I were talking about this, that we don't get the opportunity to deep dive into teams as much as we used to, because we're all over the place and trying to keep track of who's coming next. And especially with the transfer window, Leagues Cup and everything in the middle, it's like trying to just figure out where everybody's at and what roster they're on now. But Minnesota United, you've seen them enough for sure with your time with LA Galaxy the last 6+ years, when Minnesota came into the league. What do you make of them this year? Is there anything that surprised you about them? Is there anything that's frustrated you by with the way you've seen them play over the years? I mean, everybody can talk about Reynoso, but is there anything else in particular for you?
No, I would say when I look at this Minnesota team, they're a very good, solid team. I was very surprised that at the beginning they were struggling so much. And even though you said anyone can say it, I have to mention it.
Yeah.
I would say the surprising, everyone knows Reynoso's good, right? It surprised me the effect that he had on the team, that one player had since he came back, the difference in the totality of the team, as a unit. It shows me, regardless of what people want to say about him negatively and positively, he affects his teammates. Somehow, some way, he gets better from them. He can do something individually that inspires the others, or he's motivating just on his own. It's really interesting to me. That's something that I would love. If I was there, I'd be able to deep dive and really look at and just go, what during trainings and everything, what is he doing and how he's affected this team, that a Minnesota team that was struggling while he wasn't there. But as soon as he comes back, a couple of games in, then all of a sudden, boom, 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 turning things around. Now, how long that effect lasts, who knows? Is it like we're seeing right now with the new coach bounce that we're seeing in certain teams like Portland or whatnot? Who knows? But Reynoso is definitely an impact there. St. Clair in goal, more props to him. I didn't know he could be a striker like that.
Yeah, how about that pass? I mean, that wasn't like your normal goalkeeper go up on a corner cap. That was like a nice touch and a nice pass.
That's what I'm saying. What vision, by him. The striker just, there's my open guy, boom, just pass it out like there in a high pressured situation. I was impressed by that.
So if Reynoso goes down with an injury, we know who we can put in as a 10.
There we go. Bring him in.
St. Clair.
Bring him up.
And then just last but not least, because I know you got to get to your prep and all things, but what about the men's national team coming off of 2022, what they did in Qatar? I know the last game that they played wasn't ideal, but what they made of it, bringing Greg Berhalter back, sort of the continuity in the next cycle. And then the big thing is 2026 hosting in the United States in North America. What that means for soccer in this country to be hosting a World Cup in North America, and especially with the buildup. I mean, we talk about academies, youth system, the popularity of the sport. The women's team has always won, except for this year. But what about the men's team? What does that do for youth soccer and soccer in general to be hosting in 26?
It's so important. First off, I'll go with the men's national team. It was a disappointing result, I think, in the last World Cup. I think I shouldn't say disappointing. Let me rephrase that. They did what they were supposed to do, right? They got out, but they ended up losing. And you would want them to go beyond, because we're talking about, this is for all intents and purposes, this is our golden generation, right? With the players that we have there right now. So I'm hoping I'm not jinxing it, but it's perfect timing that it's 26 that these players are going to be all in their prime, and it's going to be in our country as a host nation. And so I think for them, this is the opportunity for Berhalter as coach and for those players to do something special. And with that, doing something special, it leads into everything else. We talk about a World Cup and as a host nation along with Canada and Mexico. We saw exponential growth after the 94 World Cup being here. There will be exponential growth after this World Cup with the U.S. being one of the host nations. The amount of that growth, how big it will be dependent on how well the U.S. team does. Regardless, we're going to have it. So that's going to be great for just soccer in general. So that's why I really hope that the team does well, because it will explode soccer to a whole nother level within the United States. It affects adults, youth, college, club, everything that you can think about at every level, boys, girls, everyone gets affected by it on how these national teams do in the end, regardless of what people say. You do well, there's more attention, and that brings more focus on the sport, and that's what we need here within the United States. Especially over for the men, when they didn't make that World Cup previously, you saw a lull within U.S. soccer, and so thankfully the women came through, and had a great cup before. This one wasn't the best cup, but that's how they play off of each other. That's going to be very, very important to understand that there's a support base, going back and forth. I will say this, and sorry for the hesitation, but I want to get this right. There will be no better time for soccer in this country over the next few years. When we talk about what's going to be coming here, you talk about a Copa America, coming to the U.S., Club World Cup, coming to the U.S., the World Cup coming to the U.S. I'm hoping a Women's World Cup right after that to the U.S. Then an Olympics, where we talk about the U23s going to be here in the U.S. This is a time like we've never seen before for soccer within the United States. So this is the time to be involved with this sport at any level, because we're going to see some pretty amazing things happening, some pretty surprising things happening, I think, as well over the next few years.
Well, and look at the bounce we got from '94, even with those terrible denim jerseys.
Don't hate on those jerseys.
You've got to still have one hanging in your closet or something, right? Or is it framed? Like, where is that bad boy? Did you auction it off maybe for like a good cause or something?
I got a few of those jerseys in some bags somewhere.
Hey, anything that still lives on to this day in people's memories, that means it did its job, right? That made its mark.
Exactly. And I mean, those are classics. I wonder how much those jerseys would go for now. Some of the signed, the stripes ones, the denim ones, the red, white, it's all crazy.
How many are we going to see those? We're going to see a bunch of those, I bet you, in 26. People that have those, that bought those back then and then are so pumped to have it back here in North America. We are going to see a bunch of those jerseys.
And they're going to have bragging rights, because they're going to say, we were supporting when no one was caring.
That's it. That's legit. They are going to wear that thing with pride, because they were supporting it when, you're absolutely right, when it wasn't the thing to do. They're going to be supporting it. So that's going to be pretty awesome. I'm pumped for the whole future of soccer in this country. And I know we work in it, but that doesn't matter. It's just like, if you've been a part of it and you love sports in general, and especially when you see something grow the way soccer has in the United States, I think that there's so much excitement about it and the passion. And once you've been in soccer, it's like you never get out. It's in some way, shape, or form. It's just, how many times I go to a Minnesota United game, or I run into people at a youth tournament here that either we played club with, my husband and I, and are still in the community, in the soccer sphere in the state of Minnesota. Like, it's just, you can't escape it. It's too contagious in a positive light to get away from it. And I'm excited for 2026 and the buildup, and then hopefully into 2027 as well. That'll be pretty awesome. And that'll be a real legit comeback year for the women after they got underperformed by the U.S. women's standards. Yeah. Well, I think we'll see a little bit for the women with the Gold Cup coming up here. Yes. So, yes. Right. Now we have a women's goal. Yeah. I mean, there's too many good things. Keep adding it on. Yes, exactly. And as our kids get older, hopefully they can aspire to, be in one of those positions some days. And if they don't, then they'll be in the stands cheering it on and playing at the next level. So that'll be all good. That's it. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Cobi. I'll let you get back to your boards and your next travel adventure, even though you're just hot off the plane. It's like planes, trains, and automobiles. Sometimes you just don't know what you're getting into. I'm back on the plane tomorrow, so we'll see. There you go. All right. Thanks, Cobi. Appreciate you taking the time. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Take care. All right. Bye. Thanks, everybody. Tune in next week for another episode of Sound of the Loons, presented by Allina Health.